Likewise. So, look, we've got, of course, the Margaret River Pro finished up in stellar fashion. Um, the top five and the top 20 surfers. And what is it, the top 12 for women?
Great question. Don't
Yeah,
know.
who
Yeah.
knows? But, but
We're so good at our job.
no, but anyway, there's a little bit to talk about, a lot to talk about, perhaps. I've got
I
some
got
stuff.
plenty to talk about.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
top 10 for the women.
Okay, top 10. So top 10 women, top 20 male surfers going into the Chopu event in about a month. So where to begin? I guess we start with the Margaret River Pro because they absolutely hit a home run on finals day with really great surf. And when there's really great surf, you have really excited surf fans and you generally have incredible competition and waves that were surfed. And that was definitely the case here. Great waves for finals day and a feel good event, in my opinion. Jack Robinson and John Florence in the final. I mean, you ask for more than that when you have 6 to 8 foot glassy blue main break at Margaret River.
Pretty exciting. I mean, look, this is what exactly what we want out of surfing, and this is what we advocate for all the time. It's just running the best surfers in the best waves, and that's exactly what happened that day. Interestingly, I would not identify Margaret River as being one of the most progressive waves on, in the world, and wouldn't expect the high performance surfing to be done at Margaret River until the last 5 years. And I think John unlocked that with on a really big day when he was doing those really big turns, 5 or 6 years ago. Felipe doubled down on that 2 years ago with his really scintillating surfing on the right. Um, this year, I feel like it was a little bit more of the same, but it's never goes out of style. The John turn in the heat that he had against George Pitar, where he got the 10, but his wave before the 10 was like a high eight. And it is that turn that I'm talking about that we all have seen him do out there, but it's like he's going vertical into the section where there would be a lip to hit normally, where people would just snap off the lip, let's say. But he lays it on rail and kind of gets almost upside down and turns the board against the lip and then turns it all the way, does like a full wrapping torque turn, the entirety of the rail back into the pocket and then comes out of it. It is power. It is kind of the fundamentals that we talk about with power, speed, and flow of surfing, but it is incredibly progressive. And I don't know that there's another wave on the planet that would allow that exact style of turn better than Margaret River. So it's the surfers have elevated their game to redefine the way that that wave is surfed. And it has now become a highlight event of the year for me.
Well, I agree. Power surfing is really brought to the forefront at this wave. And the bottom line is, I think you need a large lower half, like you need a large trunk. John Florence is, first of all, he's bigger than you realize.
Mhm.
He's probably 6'1", maybe 6'2".
Yeah,
He's got massive legs. And this spot and the type of surfing that John has elevated this spot that we're expecting from this spot, you can't have chicken legs. You can't do that turn that you're talking about in full completion with full rail buried without a lower trunk that's thick and meaty. And I think we saw a little bit of that even from George Pitar. The kid was surfing insane. He was
totally.
surfing incredible. I'm not taking anything away from him except that for him to beat John Florence at that spot, or Jack Robinson for that matter, or Jordy Smith for that matter, you better thicken up your lower half if you expect to do that turn. That's the turn you have to do to win this event. You
Mm.
have to surf in that fashion. And I think guys with skinny, kind of like chicken legs, and I'm one of those guys, by the way, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to get past John or Jack or Jordy or Felipe for that matter, who has a strong lower body with, sort of these little like slender surfing legs.
Well, it's like I said, the wave has won me over. One thing I like about the wave is also the pacing. It isn't just high speed down the line like Snapper. There are slow moments on it, but you see the guys who have the lower body that you're talking about being able to really power past that and into the power of the wave. It's, I know people have made references to Sunset Beach when they talk about Margaret River. Sunset is an way vaster playing field, and the slow spots at Sunset are much larger, and the more intense spots are much more intense. So it's kind of this broader version of Margaret. Margaret is more compact and on the reef, but you still do have the one big outside section, a bit of slowness through the middle, and then the closing section that is on, dry reef often. And so being able to pace through the entire ride and really nail turns requires you to be both kind of sprightly in the right moment and then really heavy and power footed in the other moment. And yeah, John and Jack Robinson, I think, have become the best at doing it.
And you mentioned two of the greatest regular foots on tour. And I feel like this wave and that turn, for lack of a better phrase, the John turn, that's the turn that we all need, that every competitor needs to reach for. For the backside surfers, the Gabe Medinas or the Idlos, their backside turn, although it's vertical and insane, and the apex of that turn is sort of up at the top of the turn, where the John or Jack Robinson apex is in the back third of the turn, is where
Mm-hmm.
now they're getting all of their rail engaged. And I feel like it's one of those rare waves where the regular foot or the front side surfer actually has the upper hand here because of what's required and where the apex of that turn is. It's almost at the back half of the turn, whereas the goofy footers, as I said, doing all of their energy, all of their turns sort of up at the top half of the turn, and they don't get that back swoop into the whitewater that it seems like John's getting.
Totally, which is how I won my $10 in that Pupo versus Pupo bet. Thank you very
I'm
much.
glad you brought that up. I did pay off the Samuel Pupo, the Miguel Pupo bet that we had. Now,
Although
yeah,
in a
I
bummer,
know.
the ranking shifted so much that one of those brothers was supposed to make the cut. Whoever won would make it, and whoever lost, which made it a really intense heat. They both didn't make the cut because I think Seth Moniz jumped so many spots in the rankings unexpectedly that it kind of Sammy got bumped down, even though he won the heat.
Now, sort of one more note about the John turn, for lack of a better phrase. Um, we saw Jack Robinson in the final do an air on the outside section at 6 to 8 foot main break at Margaret's. Pretty much almost as good as it gets, right? But he scored a 9.1. Now in the semifinal prior to that, John got a 10 for the turn that we're talking about. So I guess my
No, for a
question to
different
you,
turn. John's was the layback that he got the 10 for.
right, but I mean, my point is that there was an air on the outside
Okay.
and there was a massive, incredible, never to be repeated again turn, but that it wasn't an air. So my
Okay.
question to you is, were these waves scored correctly? I guess the question is, did Jack Robinson deserve more than a 9.1 for doing something on the outside, getting into the air? And it was a legit good aerial. I'm not an aerial expert, but he certainly threw caution to the wind. Did he deserve a higher score than the 9.1? Did
Can,
he deserve a 10? When you
can
put those two waves back to back and you look at them both, what's your feeling there?
can you remind me, did he do anything else on that wave?
Yeah, he did. He did the air, then he came down, did another little turn, and then finished it up with a
Yeah,
hammer.
that's right. So for clarity, for listener, waves are only scored against other waves in the heat. So obviously it's you can't compare one heat to the next, although it could be argued that you should be able to. But I'll play your game with you. And I think that John's felt like a 10 to me when I saw it, and Jack Robinson's did not feel like a 10 to me when I saw it. And John's, when I saw it was a big layback that he did right into the lip on the first section. A lot of laybacks, people come out of it and have to like recover and get to their feet. This was so well executed that he was like, he blew the board out and laid back with just one little finger, toenail hanging on the front foot. But the board was falling towards the bottom of the wave and his momentum was falling on top of the board. And he just basically landed it and rode out of it seamlessly without any downtime. And then the next two turns that he did were right in the criteria of speed, power, and flow. There was no downtime in those either. So he came out of layback, boom, did another turn. And then the end section smash was worth 5 points on its own. And so when that kind of level of intensity from the beginning of the ride to the end of the ride was like undeniable. It was just, there was not a moment where if anything would have gone wrong in any single moment in that ride, he would have fallen off and it would have been high impact and intense and exciting, but he would have fallen off. Whereas Jack Robinson's, I felt like, again, the pacing was just a little bit slower. It was like an air to a land to then a reset of a turn. And then the end turn was good, but not fantastic. So that was the differentiation in the score to me.
Yeah, I agree with you. We've made mention before that your intuition, your first instinct, which you mentioned, which I think is right on, is obviously one that you should go with. I feel like it's that sort of Supreme Court um, definition of pornography. Like I don't know how to define a 10, but I know it when I see it. And that's kind of how we felt with John's wave. I also feel like John's wave is a wave that is better in real time. When they broke it down in slow motion, you're like, okay, gosh, yeah, I guess there's a little bit of luck involved. Like he just kind of got lucky and the board slid back under his feet. But when you watch it in real time, you're like, holy mackerel, that whole thing was just, he's done that before. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So it's one of those situations.
Yeah. I had a friend comment in kind of right at the end of the event that he felt finals day was overscored as a whole. He's like, basically this event was so lackluster for all the opening rounds leading up to this that this feels just like the ultimate gratification because we've waited so long for it and there's so many down days and on the days they did run it was really mediocre. um, and I thought that there was a little bit of a point to be made. However, everything that we said to set up this segment about this wave really presenting a unique challenge that isn't on the rest of the tour, and then this day providing those opportunities for the surfers and the surfers elevating to those opportunities, I thought it was scored accurately. Like I did feel like John's was the 10, and I did feel like the 5 or 6 other nines that we saw throughout the day warranted those scores because these are the best surfers in the world and they are at the like this spot that is totally unique is doing its thing and they're elevating the sport of surfing in the style of surfing that they're doing today. Whereas I feel like so many other times on tour, I could just be watching the event, but flip on my phone and I see, somebody else on the internet doing a crazy air or crazy barrel somewhere else in the world that I think is superior. On this day, this was the surfing that I wanted to be watching, bar none.